Hello, I'm Giuseppe Giunta, the music director and conductor of the Des Moines Symphony, welcoming you to the DMSO Listening Room, a part of the DMSO at Home series of videos self-produced by our musicians from their homes to yours. This is a continuation of my talk about music inspired by springtime. The great Italian opera composer Giuseppe Verdi wrote his Four Seasons ballet that comes in the middle of his opera, The Sicilian Vespers. The spring portion of this dramatic and effective piece is his way of acknowledging the French opera tradition in which a ballet opened the third act. English composer Ralph Vaughan Williams called his Lark Ascending a pastoral romance for orchestra. It's full of folk melodies, which he spent a lifetime collecting, and incorporated some of these in the soaring and nostalgic solo violin passages of this piece. This is a deeply personal and nostalgic piece, and portrays the peacefulness and gloriousness of the English countryside. The great Finnish composer Jan Sibelius wrote 5 short piano pieces between 1914 and 1919. These pieces were inspired by different kinds of trees as they bloomed. They're completely original and effective, and with musical tone painting that gives each tree its own personality. French modernist Darius Milhaud loved American jazz and composed this work for violin and piano in 1914. He also wrote several volumes of works titled Printemps, as well as a chamber symphony with the same name. These works are full of rhythmic excitement and energy and vitality, and of course, his trademark polytonality. Lilly Bulger lived from 1893 to 1918. She was the first woman to win the Prix de Rome competition. Her output comprised of more than 50 works. Just prior to her untimely death at 24 years old, she wrote D'un matin du printemps, of a spring morning, which is full of life and anticipation for a new season. In 1927, Italian composer Ottorino Respighi wrote La Primavera from his 3 Botticelli pictures. The piece incorporates Renaissance dance rhythms, bird songs, and other nature sounds to symbolize the coming of spring. Astor Piazzolla's Four Seasons is a brilliant work originally written for his quintet of violin, piano, guitar, bass, and bandoneon. Later, Leonid Desyantikov made a new arrangement for solo violin and string orchestra. The 4 movements are a set of tangos written as 4 different compositions, rather than one piece. The Primavera movement, written in 1970, uses counterpoint, dance rhythms, and interesting harmonies to portray the joyful and playfulness of spring. And finally, how could I ever speak about music inspired by springtime unless I included the great 20th century masterpiece, Igor Stravinsky's shocking Rite of Spring. Now, so far I've talked about music inspired by spring that conjured up images of sunshine and warmth and tranquility and peacefulness, bird songs, nature, and other elements. All these elements related to springtime. However, Igor Stravinsky chose a far different path for his Rite of Spring. First, allow me to set the scene of 1913, the year the piece was written. St. Petersburg was a place not as Russian as we might think. It seemed like everything was from places other than Russia, including the growing number of Russians that spoke French. Even the architecture was moving away from the Gothic traditional Russian style. It was this attitude that sparked Russian artists to revolt socially, and they started to establish a nationalistic Russian identity. Stravinsky's teacher, Rimsky-Korsakov, led this charge with a group of young composers that wrote music that sounded authentically Russian. This produced opulent operas and ballets and tone poems and symphonies. And this idea caught on to other artists at the time, including Sergei Diaghilev, the great producer. He firmly believed in this new Russian philosophy. However, it caused a lot of unrest at the Imperial Theater, and therefore he went to Paris to produce ballets for his Ballet Russe company. Paris was innovative and liberal and forward-thinking, and they were always eager to embrace new ideas. It was the ideal place for him to create something truly Russian that would have brought a public appeal. And as he predicted, the first season featuring the exotic, the erotic, and the mystique became world-renowned. People traveled from many continents to attend these fabulous and once-in-a-lifetime Parisian performances. With the first season chugging along beautifully, Diaghilev announced a new innovative ballet for the following season. He said, "There is nothing like it to date, and this will be a work that changes the direction of our art form from now on." Of course, these are prophetic words indeed. To make good on his promises, he wanted music like nothing ever heard before. He invited 2 Russian composers to submit music to him, but both were too traditional and certainly not what he had in mind. He then turned to the relatively unknown 31-year-old Igor Stravinsky. Now, Stravinsky had had some success with the Parisian audiences with his 1910 ballet, The Firebird. Stravinsky wanted to bring music back to the origins of the dance, with music peasants singing and celebrating while they were planting and harvesting. Often these songs would pay homage to the gods and to fate and to many mysteries of life. In his mind, he heard a combination of music and noise, and the challenge of using a full symphony orchestra to create the unbridled power of emotion kept him awake at night with anticipation. The music had to be powerful and nostalgic and calm and bold and exotic. He envisioned the driving rhythm of Beethoven, but with multiple time signatures, turning strong beats into weak ones. He wanted the piece to be so powerful that the musicians would struggle playing it, and dancers could only feel it rather than count it. And the orchestration would be brilliant, a combination of French and Russian traditions in a 20th century format. When opening night arrived, it was publicized as one of the great musical events of the season in Paris. Stravinsky was very nervous because he knew the Paris public was unforgiving, and although tolerated new productions and pieces, the avant-garde was not easily met with open arms. From the very beginning, when the bassoon started playing the solo in such a high register that it was impossible for the Parisian audiences to know what instrument was even playing, the audience started to make noise. And within the first 5 minutes, more and more noise was heard until shouting ensued. Stravinsky ran to the wings. The production, as well as the audience, was in complete chaos. The great choreographer Nijinsky screamed counts to his dancers from backstage to keep them from getting lost. Oh, what a night. But somehow, the production continued, and the conductor, Pierre Monteux, found a way to keep the orchestra playing amidst all the noise. Later, Monteau said that Stravinsky had taken the orchestra, a symbol of elegance and high society and culture, and converted it into a monster, making sounds only beasts could make. How wonderful. So what did Stravinsky do to make this music so visceral that it created raw emotions and upheaval for the audience? Well, in his quest to recreate the ancient ritual of tribes congregating in the spring to celebrate their relationship with the earth and all that it provides, his genius led him to make bizarre choices, combining instruments of all kinds, using their extreme registers that was reminiscent of people celebrating the earth and the fruits of their labor. These uncomfortable and strange sounds perfectly conjured up these images. And what makes this even more special by today's standards is his use of rhythm. The unpredictable nature of non-traditional rhythm changed the course of music history, much like Beethoven's Eroica Symphony did in 1803. That's it for today's DMSO Listening Room. And don't forget, click on the links right after this video to hear the music I just spoke about. If you're interested in more online content, go to our website, dmsymphony.org, for more information. Thanks for watching.